JavaScript. It's a lot of fun. This is a little known Ruby site. That is my JavaScript running on it. I love JavaScript. This is a flag made out of bacon. Now that we all have a base assumption as to how this presentation is going to go, I feel like it'll work out better. It would work out even better if the slide... there we go. This is Rails caching a la JavaScript. I am Chris Williams, codenamed Voodoo Tiki God. Most people will probably know me by that, or they'll know me by the fact that I'm ridiculously crazy. Could be both. I've done a lot of things in my life, and I'm not going to lie to you. I was quite surprised that I was invited to speak here. And if there is a puddle that forms, don't worry, that's just nature. It's been a great conference thus far. I think everyone can agree. And I'd like to be the first to say thank you to the organizers and believe they deserve a round of applause. In order to meet the time limit, we need to do a little bit longer round of applause. Slides are tough. I want to warn you, the first couple minutes of this presentation are going to be very quick and punchy and very inflammatory. If you have emotions about certain 5-letter frameworks that begin with R and end with ales, you might want to leave. I'll give a little bit of time for everyone to leave. Okay, good. So if you're here, first things first, and this is very important. I do love Ruby, but I really hate Rails. I hate it, and I hate it. And you might ask why, and we'll simply put, it's a condonosaurus. It's a mashup of many things, but it has really, really sharp talons. And it'll rip you to shreds, or at least your servers. The thing I really hate about it is that it allows you to dream big dreams, like this dog who's looking at the moon, thinking he's going to get there. But you know what? Just like this dog with Rails, you will never get there. In the dog's case, it's because, you guessed it, he's a dog. In Rails' case, you guessed it as well, it's also a dog. So what happens? You get really addicted to pills, which are just a couple, quick fix. Oh my goodness, I really need to paginate. Jam that puppy in. I really need to make this faster. So Steve Saunders says to use jam it, so I'm jamming it. No idea what it's doing. But I got all this stuff in here, and all of a sudden I see time machines. It's awesome. Everywhere I look, time machines. So then this goes fine until all of a sudden you realize that your time machine is not actually moving you through time. Space maybe, time not so much. So you go back to the well and you go get more pills. And then all of a sudden it's becoming too big, and we just had a presentation. It was actually a great lead-in. That it grows big, it grows complex, and it's really too big for your brain to hold. So you go out and you hire the twins, and they're twins. At this point, you're no longer leading the show. You come to realize that your cat is, and he says that you're running low on money, and you have to get this app out now. And that's exactly what you do. You don't get it right, you get it right enough, which is sort of like Rails, it's fast enough. And then when you're out there, your site thrashes, crashes, and dies the death of 1,000 automatic notifications telling you that you are a horrible citizen and that your server is being shut down forever. Your only recourse? Buy more machines. And by this point, you're about to either get fired or you've become a scaling addict. So as I said in the beginning, I hate Rails because it gives people dreams that they will never reach with the tools provided. So the context for this. This is a lot of setup, right? Hopefully there's something that somebody else added to these slides, otherwise this is going to be bad. Let me get a question. A general hand raising will be great. How many of you work in a company that has a development staff of 10 or more people? Okay. 5 or more people? 2 or more people? Okay, how many of you are solo rangers rocking it out on the home front? To this, I love all of you. Just remember this when we go on. The skew on that was basically a lot at the 2 level and a bell curve thereafter, or some other curve. I co-founded a company called Our Parents. I was the only developer. It was me and another guy. We started the company. He provided the financing for the bootstrap, and I did everything else. Pretty fair arrangement, right? I write the code, he says he handles everything else. So within 4 months, I built and launched an application. It's essentially like a Hotels.com experience for nursing homes and senior care. 5 months later, we dominate the market. And if this was some sort of sale pitch, I would say something great now. But just remember, it's just me. To this day, it's still me. We actually have 4 products out there, including one that's a sensory network deployed in houses. So in terms of complexity, my average day has complexity in spades. On top of this, I run a side company, I bought a house, I ran a conference, and I'm having a baby. And my wife crashed my beautiful sports car. So to deal with the standard Ruby gem addiction was not a process I had the time nor energy to deal with. I tried to use the base set of tools, but as you can guess, I'm very sardonic and don't really like anything. With every possible configuration, I tried Memcache, Redis, everything. And you know what? For a lone developer, any day you spend not doing something productive is a day you've wasted from your life. That's applicable in any number of categories. So the problem was they either took forever and a day to learn or to get right, or they were never right enough, or they just flat out provided no lasting speed. On the screen right now, you see the base 3 recommendations for caching. Fragment caching, which has this great thing where you fragment pieces and you save them. And you know what? Has anyone ever really gotten that to work properly and gotten speed benefits out of it? Good, 6 people. That's a good caching technique. All the way down to page caching, which is essentially you're caching full pages to disk. And you know what's great about this? Everyone thinks this is wonderful and they recommend it. It's fast, fast, fast. Because you're serving it through Nginx. You're not even hitting Rails. The problem is most Rails apps are personalized and they require, updates. So what are you caching? You come up with complex UUIDs that render if this person has done this and they went back through here and cached that. And that page gets used once, and it's worthless. So for me, I'm very hesitant because all of these basically amount to the same amount of help that a cheeseburger does. And what I really needed was something that would get the job done with little effort, little thought, and worked perfectly. This is actually a snowman that is sitting on the border of Russia. It's worked to protect Russia for years. And like they say, in Soviet Russia, snowman gets you. So I needed something that didn't require me to be a rocket scientist to recreate or assist, because someday, I'm always promised, we're going to hire another person, and that never happens. I needed something awesome, so I turned to my good friend, JavaScript. Pure, unadulterated, moonbeam spotlighted JavaScript. And I would like to share this solution with you. This is going a lot faster than I had thought, so this is going to be ridiculous. Okay, before I go any further, I do want to clarify, this technique does not work well for all websites. As you can see in this Venn diagram that does nothing really to show anything, there is a portion of this technique that it won't work for sites out there. So basically, the sites that it works for are sites that are on the web. Yeah. And as long as not 3/4 of a given page is personalized. And what that means is that me, person A, gets a different experience than you, person B. As long as at least 1/4 of the page is still intact, you get a huge amount of benefit from this technique. Okay? And if you are over that 3/4 limit, stop. We don't need another Twitter. We don't need another Facebook. Please stop now. So for most people, the level of making it special for you, as we would like every one of our users who are also drug addicts, basically means rendering something in the top right that has the user's name. Let's be honest. When you boil it down, that's all the personalization you really get. So here's the trick you've been waiting for, the entire reason why you're here. This is my great unveiling, and we're only 10 minutes in. Write your entire system to be optimized for the 90% case. We forget about this. Websites that get used have a 90% pathway. And what that means is that 90% of your visitors will hit the same pages and never hit any other page. Every single page, render all of those to disk, to Memcache, to whatever you want, with 0 personalization. Write them all out. Let Nginx or Apache or whatever unnamed server you use, let that serve it out and be happy. Done. Okay. This is cool because I'm just writing everything out. Every time, it's just going straight to disk. It's never hitting Rails. Fast. And then you don't have to worry about it. And then you know what you do with the rest of it? You don't worry about it. The personalization, You don't worry about it. This is a fundamental, there's nothing complex. This is a very simple proposition. It's basically, don't let Rails do any work. Like I said, it's going to go quick. Here's where the magic is, this one little line. This is actually a similar line as to what you saw in the beginning with Ruby Forge with the new customized edition. The magic here is that this code is actually in your HTML at the bottom. All it's doing is it's querying the server at runtime on the client side, pulling back a JSON-P, which is a JavaScript file. Essentially, it's a function. Actually, I have this on the next slide. It's a function that wraps around some sort of JSON data. If you look at our parents right now, this actually is in there. I'm not trying to be anything crazy. You're either a bot or not. And if you're not a bot, I actually load in Google Maps and everything for you. And then whatever your last location was, which, thank goodness, was New York. Otherwise, it could have been bad. And then once you get that back, that function immediately binds, executes, and runs. Thank you, JavaScript. And then you go through the personalization process. Now, this is kind of cool, because you render all of your lists of data using Haml.js, jQuery template, or Mustache. And like I said, this isn't rocket science. I'm not selling you snake oil here, I promise. But that's intentional, because when you're writing multiple systems and you are the sole responsible party, you don't look for magic. You look for things that work and get out of your way. This does that. Now, before you revolt for why I'm sitting here and only wasted 11 minutes of your life, take a look at this. Icons. They're awesome. So the standard Rails process, and I've boiled this down to hyper-simplified methods, right? Rails, whatever, basically anything. It doesn't have to be Rails, but semi-apropos. It could be Sinatra. It could be PHP. It could be Node.js. You have a connect, a query, a render, and a respond sort of process, right? So the connect is essentially handling the first proxy of the communication, dealing with the routing, all that other fun stuff. Querying, you go out and assemble all the data necessary for the page. And in the case of personalization, you assemble all that. And since it's personalized, it's unique. So every single time, it's got to go redo that. Then you have the render. And since the render pages are personalized, they always have to hit different either fragment cache stores or other things, or render it out in string. As we heard earlier, string is not exactly your most highly performant thing. It uses a lot of memory. This gets around that because I'm just rendering it once, dump it to disk, and never worry about it ever again. And then respond, which is basically sending the packets down the wire. So if you look at this, though, you can cache the connect using an F5, and if it's present, it sends the data back down. But let's not get into that because no mere mortal can afford F5s. The queries, we have database caching. We have all this built in and continually enhanced. The render has always been the bastard stepchild that just doesn't get any love. And then the respond. This proposition that I'm making to you, this sort of new way of doing caching by way of JavaScript, changes this. It pushes the rendering of the uniqueness down to the client. So instead of my server having to go up to 2 gigabytes of memory, costing me buku bucks just to render you, Aaron Quint, a special page that says, "Hi, Aaron." I don't have to do that. I push it down to his machine. I let his machine do the work. So look at it this way. I'm up here presenting. You guys are out there. Who has more power in this situation? Me, with my one laptop, or you with your fleet and army of laptops that are probably faster than my server, let's be honest. You guys. So that's the basic premise of this. Let the client, which is being the unique part, render the uniqueness of your system. That's it. This gets a huge amount of benefits. Yes?
What happens when your clients are unable to do such?
You mean like your server goes down?
No, I mean like the thing in your pocket can't really do that. And I don't mean your wallet, I mean your phone.
I'm really worried about what other thing you're talking about, to be honest.
Well, that shouldn't be in your pocket.
Sometimes things happen. Are you talking about your phone?
Yeah, the phones are generally not powerful enough to do this.
Well,
if you look at like Row Mobile and titanium and whatnot, they end up having to write a really restricted subset.
I could give you the FU response if I told you that there was a percentage that doesn't fit in here. But what I'm going to give you is most modern browsers on phones are full JavaScript stack. So what mobile phone, barring the Motorola Razr that 4 people have, can't render JavaScript?
It's not that they can't render JavaScript, it's just it's too slow, it's too large, the latencies over cell networks are too... I'm doing this...
So you're talking about the latency component.
I'm doing this right now, so I know this, like I tried this approach and it wasn't that great.
There are a couple ways. One, you could compress the data based off of mobile and then send a subset of the data because you're probably only showing a subset of the site. Are you rendering an optimized, for mobile type thing? Okay, so jQuery Touch does the same sort of thing. Dave Kanata, he's done a lot of it. What I'm about to show you with the next piece is also another way of doing it. You get a little bit of a lag time at the beginning, but over time, what you're essentially doing is like a CouchDB replication where you're syncing the data over to the HTML5 data store, which then it's stored there. There are a couple ways of doing that. One, going along the whole mobile category, not all of them have HTML5 data stores. What you can do, depending upon your level of personalization, is render it via, or save the data in cookies, and just dump everything into a cookie store, and then it's locally there. So when they boot up, everything's there, and you only query back for the pieces that you need. In the latency world, it is a little bit, I'm going to do a bit of hand waving, and at some point I will say that it, depending upon the certain circumstances, fits into the percentage that I said it may not work for. If you're building it for that, you could also just shim that piece out and just render it like you normally would rendering a single page, but you won't get the benefit of this. But most of your 90% pathway is not going to be accessed through mobile unless you're doing a mobile-only site. Most people are going to come to it through their web browsers. So the benefit here is that the Rails stack rarely gets hit. And it really only gets hit in order to authenticate or personalize the data. And so all I'm doing, all the pages are cached to disk. Nginx or Apache serve that out. And then on that JSON-P call, I can have it hit Sinatra or Rails, do the authentication, ensure, because with that JSON-P call in the script, it actually sends all the cookie data along with it, which is also one of the bases of a cross-site scripting attack, which is awesome. So yeah, you were about to ask a question.
I didn't mean to stop you.
Oh, it's okay.
What about doing this on like an edge side instead of on the client? Particularly if there are problems with like authorization where you really don't want to be, exposing sensitive things to the client necessarily.
What do you mean by edge side?
So basically something that sits between the client and your Rails stack, and performs the same logic.
Which logic are you referring? Are you talking about the caching logic or the authentication logic?
The personalization logic.
Okay, you could do that. I'm making no stipulations on how it's done. What I'm really making stipulations about is the transport. That you send down a fully cached page, and then you query back for what's unique, and then you render said uniqueness. Google actually already does this. When you go to google.com, you notice that they started this weird thing where it fades in at the top, and it's spooky. That's actually rendering the same processing. And what you're essentially doing is you're unhooking that first page load from the personalization of it. And that personalization can take some time because, like I said, as long as you're not changing 75% of the page, it's going to be, there are ways to make it look like it. Most times, your JavaScript calling back from the server and rendering the data back is going to take less than an image download. So, while the images are still popping up, the JavaScript DOM is rendering and executing, and it validates and does all that. So, any other questions? Okay. So the cool thing, talking about all this, is like I said, the 90% pathway. This makes it very easy to maintain. I don't have to think about this page looks weird for person A or person B, because I can now wrap that around in testing. I can now, that I know the transport pathway in is a JSON-P, I can simulate and push data down that renders however I want it. I can very easily encapsulate my testing of the view. The view render is a single-time render. So it's either right or it's wrong. It's not right in certain circumstances and wrong in others. It's right or it's wrong. It's very binary. So now you've done a whole lot to encapsulate it and make it for testing, which, if you heard me at the bar, I'm not a fan of. The other thing is, as I said, it uses a lot less memory, which reduced our cost tremendously. We cut from a 2 gig server down to a 256 meg server just by using this. Just throw the stuff on disk, don't worry about it. Because all you're handling, essentially all you're handling, is those JSON-P calls, and that's it. You can push all your images out. You can actually push all your HTML out to a CDN, and it blows incredibly fast. I don't think that was the right way of saying that. Huh?
What was your reduction again?
We were running a 2 gig server, trying to do page caching, fragment caching, all of the fun with that. Mainly that was memcache and Rails fighting for that space. And then what I did is I took the memcache and cut it down to 128, and then left the Rails, and we were able to fit into a 256 meg server nicely and have it just hum along without worry. And the reason why is what I'm doing with the memcache is the personalization, 70 to 80% of the time, it's not getting updated. It's just base information. So I just throw that in a memcache and invalidate it whenever an update or a post happens. And only do it that way. Then I'm actually serving the personalization token from memcache as well. And you can actually you're basically cutting Rails out of the entire stack, which makes it great. It's a different sort of way of doing it. There's all these, yeah. Hold on a second. Just remind me that you're back there, otherwise I'll keep going. There's all these sorts of unique fallouts that happen that you can just say, oh, well, the personalization doesn't change, so cache it, throw it in memcache. And since they're small little JSON tidbits, they're not that costly to put in there. So, does that answer? Yeah.
How much traffic?
Right now, I have no idea off the top of my head. We're doing not enough to scale horizontally yet, but now that we have a lot more vertical room to scale, I think we're at like 10,000 a day, 10,000 UVs, and then the PVs are like in the 100, up towards 100. I don't think we're at 100,000 yet. So it's not massively scale, but the nice thing is since pushing this change, I have not once had to look at it, had to worry about it, or had to care about it. It essentially back-shelved for me, which is a nice thing. And for a single developer, that's all I really am concerned about. Let me get you the exact number on that, and I can get it after this. So the other fallout benefit, and you can't really talk about caching or performance without talking about the elephant in the room, which is Google or Bing, when they go to your site and crawl it, they are crawling that 90% pathway. And with SEO being a critical component of that being page rank or page speed right now, the faster you can get that 90% pathway out the door, the better off you are. So we went from anywhere from 2.5 to 5 second load time to a 500 millisecond load time, which is awesome. To get that sort of speed gain just from making life easier, you normally don't get that. That's like bacon on a flag. So in the end, this is a huge win for solo warriors like myself. And I've been working on this further, and it's really hard. I can't codify it into a plugin. It's really more of a theoretical discussion. How do you turn the render component on its axis? How do you push it down? So sort of Rev 2 of this thought process, as I mentioned earlier, is to start caching the uniqueness on the periphery, in the edge, either in an HTML5 database, or if your tokens are small enough, you can cache it in a cookie store, which is really cool. And since the cookies are with the browser, as long as you're not caching credit cards in there, you should be relatively fine. I will tell you this, if your computer, if you're just sending down the name, there are a lot of other ways to find the person's name rather than going through your cookies. A lot of easier ways. History.location -1 is a good way. And then you can render and cache all templates on the client side on first load. And this is the replication theory. Once I come to the site on the first time, instead of just passing down the token and then have to render it every time on a page view, cache the templates as you render them out into an HTML5 database and pull from there. essentially creating your own little fragment cache local to the client, which makes it even more performant for their view processing. And then the other one, I got to figure out some way to profit on this because I'm tired of working. So if there's anything I can recommend, it's that you go out in JavaScript. JavaScript is seeing a renaissance of sorts, and it's awesome. You will find yourself being a happier and healthier individual. I don't know how, but I'm just going to say that. The key here is not just go out and just JavaScript. Just as when people started getting into Ruby hardcore, their Java program or C program or Lua programming got better because they were looking at things differently. And I think as a group, we need to stop using the term, I'm a X-languageist. I'm not a Rubyist. We're not Rubyists. We're developers. One person agrees with me. Thank you. You get a book. Can I give out a book? You don't get a book. You know, we gotta remember that Rubyists 5 years ago, somebody would have thought that you were a dancer. We're not Perlists, we're not Pythonistas, which is a really hot name. We're not Rubyists, we're not JavaScripters. We're developers, and we need to use every single tool in the tool shed. So, go out, play with a different language. I recommend JavaScript, it's a lot of fun. And it's on everybody's computer. So, and then, since I'm getting close to the Q&A session part, the final slide that I want to finish out with is along, sort of summing it up. This slide is another really good Venn diagram. What you have in A, for those of you in the back who can't read, A, the circle A is ninjas. Let's call those Rubyists. Circle E, which is here, are pirates. Let's call those JavaScripters. I knew what I was doing. And then there's circle C, which is awesomeness, which is this happy, happy developer world that we live in. Happy, happy. So D is awesome ninjas, awesome pirates, and then we all should try to strive our best to be here, which is awesome ninja pirates. Instead of being here, which is where I feel like at some points we are, where we sit down outside. So what I recommend is do yourself a favor, write a day in a different language. One that you've had no background in doing at all. And that's about it. Any questions? Hopefully I will have answers. Yes? Am I using Memcache as any part of this process? Is that a pretty good summary? Yeah. Okay. First rev, I didn't because I was just going off my tail feathers and rolling with it. So I sent everything down to the Rails stack, came all the way back up, sent it all the way back out. And that worked quite well. And then I got to thinking about it, not because we needed it to be better or faster or more improved, but just because it was gnawing at my soul that I could do this better. I want to try to get Rails out of there as much as possible, because then I could replace it with Node. So then what I did is every time I created it, I would put it into Memcache. And then I can use Nginx to query in for that key and go off of that and just pull the cookie value, the session store value, up and use those two as the Memcache key. So that way you're just querying against Memcache, and you take Rails completely out of the stack, which it's an odd goal, but I'd like to remove the slowest member of the process, which is a good goal. Yeah. So can I compare and contrast this against Sprout Core and Cappuccino and the variety of those?
Please phrase your answer in the form of a haiku.
There once was a man from Limerick. He had a, never mind. That wasn't a haiku, was it? That was a limerick. I failed Japanese training 101. The Sprout Core actually does the same technique. They do, one of the ways that they get the UI to be very rich and very fast is they leverage the HTML database on the client side to proxy the interactions going back to the wire, and then they do one big data sync out back, which is a really cool way of doing it. It's actually the inverse of this inverse of craziness. Because their target domain, all three of those that you mentioned, are doing rich push or rich interactivity, so there's a lot of back and forth, it's a great extension upon the base principles of this. This is targeting more, like I build a standard website and I'm not looking to make an almost.at. and I push that down. Like I said, the 75%. Most of those pages are highly personalized. You're getting your own view. But what they also do is you create those pages and you query back for the AJAX connection in Cappuccino, for example. The first thing you do is you open up the AJAX requester and you pull the data and render it back out. And that's all being done client side. The overriding pattern here is called an AJAX head pattern. And it's really focusing on, send down the wire, get your system set up immediately or as fast as possible in the client aspect, and then render the data back in whatever's personalized to them. So in terms of contrasting, I'm not sure I can really contrast it. The techniques are compositional. Would that be a good word? If it isn't, I used it. So, yes?
For the HTML fragments, do you generally just pass back the core data and have use JavaScript to then render out the elements, or do you actually render out the DOM fragments on the server and then pass that back for the JavaScript to insert into
The way I do it is I only pass data across the wire, and I have a firm belief that that's the way that God intended it. I'm just going to pull that card. I'm not a big fan of sending HTML over the wire unless it's got an HTML tagline. And it becomes very complex to do in a JSON-P because you have a huge string data, and JavaScript is not very good at multi-line strings. It's an open, admitted type thing. So what I do is I present it, or as shown, whoa, too far. There we go. What I'm doing is I just send JSON data back down the wire, so it's nicely keyed and valued, and you can persist things back with those keys and the values based off of that. And then render the function in it. And depending upon the type of data, I'm either going to use a templating language like Mustache, or like, well, the benefit of Mustache is it'll escape all of it for me by nature. It's inherently escaped. Or jQuery templates, which is being pulled into jQuery base package, or Dojo's widgeting toolkit, or any of those. All of the base languages provide some way of templating out data and sending it and rendering it in. So what I'll do is I'll render those templates because it's just one string, as opposed to you're going to look at, if just to do the hello world, you're looking at like 6 different lines of code in JavaScript to create the element, throw the element in, attach the element, attach the text node, and that sort of thing, and put it back into the DOM tree. So I'd rather just use a templating engine that is going to take that string, document.write it in, and then pull that up and put it in the right place. It'll be a lot more performant too. The question was, what do you do about users who do not have JavaScript enabled? For right now, in the current instance, I forget about them. They're still getting a great experience. They're getting the 90% pathway that's cached to disk. They can log in. They're just not getting the, hello, my name is X, or here are your last visited things, or that sort of thing. So it's a degraded experience, admittedly, but it's not a fully degraded experience. It's actually a very rich experience. It's just not with the personalization.
And that's what the browser, and that's what the search engine bots would be seeing as well, correct?
Correct. So, because they aren't going to instantiate the JavaScript engine for your page, render it, because that's a huge security risk on their side.
But they do now.
They do to determine the page speed. They don't to do the SEO evaluation. But I do believe Google is working on it with, I forgot what the name of the project is, of having what a JavaScript rendered tree looks like after a certain period. If I'm not mistaken, what they do is they boot it up, take the page speed, cache, save that result, and then do the analysis on it, just to see if you're injecting content that you shouldn't be, type thing. Yes.
So when you say use this for personalization, but what about if I search for a doctor name in the example in your site, is that are search results just another form of personalization and you do the same thing?
It depends. Okay, I will. Oh goodness, that's why the laptop, here, you want to see what happens when you use Ruby? That.
There's nothing else.
Oh, you don't see it? Oh goodness, hurry, go, go, go. There, changed. So what on this page, which is the home page for it, this gets laid in after JavaScript VM initialization. And then this gets changed out, and then this gets changed out during the render portion. And there is no flash of unstylized content because it's rendered before that happens. The specific question that you asked was,
When you search, where does that happen? Does that follow the same pattern?
okay, so the question was repeating it. I'm not good at that. What happens when you hit the search button? So in this case, the standard pathway, please server don't be down. And the cool thing about this, or maybe not cool thing, but I'll tell you the other fun thing. So this page is fully cached to disk. It's entirely on disk. I don't do any queries. I'm not doing any geocode lookups. I'm not doing any value or definitions on it. When you hit this page, it's fully cached to disk. Now, if you are going to one that has like you type in Susquehanna, Pennsylvania, and we haven't cached that, it'll write it, render it to disk, and then serve it from disk thereafter. So this gets put in, and then that gets updated. Now, the weird thing is, and that's our 90% pathway. If I go in and I check 2 boxes, did I check that? Can somebody tell me if I checked it? I can do it. There, I got one. This would be a lot easier if I just pulled it over. So I checked 2 boxes. It's a combinatorial decision, and that's not in my 90% pathway. So what I'm doing is I render the page, and I give them the base for Pennsylvania, Colmar, and then I render, as you saw there, render the updates to it. And the only reason why that took a while is because this had never been hit before, those sorts of combinatorial decisions. Otherwise, I can cache that and send it right down, the data for it. So that is the way of doing the search results. And like I said, your 90% pathway, what Google hits, what a bot would hit, what your standard non-advanced user would hit, is highly optimized and doesn't hit your server stack. So, hold on, I'm going to go further back. One of you two, you can fight it out. One of you two.
Does it work in IE6?
It does work in IE6. The question was, does it work in IE6? And it does work in IE6. Nothing else works in IE6, but it didn't take long, actually. There's no, like I said, there's no magic. I'm just doing an AJAX request, and IE6 and IE55 and IE5, they perfected. The only thing good Microsoft ever gave you was AJAX. Yeah, that's a fair statement. It's a great question. The question was, how does this change your approach to testing? My general approach to testing I'm going to keep personal. Otherwise, I may be tarred and feathered further. So what's nice here is you can you pull back the page, you can run a statistical or a static analysis on whether or not certain tags are in there. And you only have to do it once, because that page is going to remain the same forever. It's not going to change. There's no personalization. There's no if this, render that. It's just, this is your straight page. So data in, data out, single check. Very easy. With a logged in or authenticated user, I use JQUnit or whatever I really fancy during the day. And I can actually, for the code that's on here, I'm actually rendering it in Node.js locally, and then doing a comparison on the string. So I'm expecting this as output for this function to be run. I can run it on server side, not have to boot a browser, and then evaluate that it worked. And then you run that through lint, and then you just do a quick sanity check that IE6 doesn't suck. That's my basic approach to testing for the entire system. No, I'm just kidding.